Survivor specialist Phil and Alexa are back with the Survivor 44 episode 12 predictions and power rankings. Somehow we have reached the second to last episode of the season, and we're joined by Wendell Holland, who we have loved having on in the past, winner of Ghost Island, competitor on Winners at War. He's here to break it all down and talk about these final six and all the fun stuff that he has going on during finale time.
Thank you. Glad to be here, guys. Thank you so much.
How's the world tour been, or the U.S. tour? Actually, not just U.S.
We tapped into Canada, so it's been going very well. I think Bryce and I are both a little tired because we've been running a lot and arguing with each other a lot, but it's been great. It's been great to just see all the people, and we stopped in some new cities this time. So like seeing people in Seattle and Pittsburgh was pretty cool. Well, I wasn't in Pittsburgh. I disappeared for a few weeks, but it's been a really cool journey.
Yeah. How are you all picking the locations that you're going to out of curiosity? Because it is such a wide range this year.
Yeah. At first, my thought was if there's a large city or a city with like 2 million or whatever people, if we go there, we will find a good group of Survivor fans, you know? Mm-hmm. So first it was a numbers game, and then we just started listening to the people. So like the people in Toronto have been like, you got to come to Toronto. Mm-hmm. They tweet us, they Instagram us. And I'm like, I'm a man of the people. Let's do it. So, so then we did Toronto, and then same with Pittsburgh, and then same with Atlanta, and then Seattle. Brandon Cottom was on the Seahawks, and now he lives in Philly, right. And we've known him for a while. So he kind of suggested Seattle, and Seattle was really, really awesome.
Seattle, a lot of our patrons are from out in like the Pacific Northwest area and things like that. And I know, there was one of our patrons has been with us since like the beginning. She flew from Seattle to the LA watch party, and she was a seat filler at that stuff. I mean, Seattle has a good following, especially with what Kelly Wentworth, when she was on the seasons and doing all that. There's excitement. Now, I want to know, because I live in Florida, when are you coming to like Miami? Like, when is that?
He's been looking. He's been waiting.
The Floridians have been asking for so long, man, and Miami keeps calling. And the only thing that I say about Miami is I just feel like it would be so South Beach. I know like South Beach, and I just know South Beach is a lot, and just to like find and get in a venue might be difficult. That was my whole thing. It's just like South Beach is just doing the most. So we consider like maybe Orlando or something.
Hey, you could go up like Fort Lauderdale area too. It's not far. I'm gonna be in contact, Wendell, because my wife has been like, when are they coming? When are they coming? I'm like, I don't know. And then Janet Carbon through the one in Orlando, but to go up there and then come back the next day for me from Orlando is like 3 hours. So that's not worth it. But I mean, if you guys were throwing, I'd go stay over, do all that. But right. Florida's dying for you guys. I'm just saying.
Here's what I'll say. And my dad has a place in Naples too. So Here's what I'll say. 45 or 46, I will try my best to come to Florida. And when I say I'll try my best, it'll probably be like 90% 46. But I'm gonna talk to Bryce, and we're gonna make it happen.
And I'm gonna text you every day until that happens, and then you're gonna block my number. So no matter what.
No. And Dr. Mike, he just got a place in Fort Lauderdale now.
Yeah.
And so I love Fort Lauderdale, so we'll make it happen somewhere in your neck of the woods in Florida.
Phil, your face is going to be in one of those, like, look who's coming to the Fort Lauderdale event.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be the guy at like the bottom, like all the way down there. Where it'll be like, and that guy, Phil.
That's another thing too. We've learned our lesson with that too. Just putting placement of people.
Oh yeah. I noticed for the finale one, when you released a bunch of the people who were coming, it seemed like you were trying to do it in season order, if I'm not mistaken, or at least that's what it started as.
Our guy, we give our guy full reign, but then sometimes we gotta say, hey, by the way, make sure you.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun. Great. I'm really excited. I'm very happy that you're all having like a lot of success with it, and it seems like every time you all have a party, it's fun, and people are always going on and on about them, and it's great that you're all doing it, because at the end of the day, we said it on the first episode when we found out Bryce listens to us, and we couldn't believe it. We say it though, it's like, this is supposed to be fun. And I think sometimes when your whole experience with it is on TV and on social media, it becomes not as fun. So when you actually get out there and get to meet the players, meet the people, meet the fans, it changes everything. And it's just such a good time.
I think like, just to put a button on this, I think the pandemic did something weird with Survivor as far as like almost separating like the older players from like the newer players, and like people felt disengaged. And then the fans also, I didn't think there was like a real connectivity. So what we really try to do on a grassroots level is like reach out to as many alums as possible. Get them out and just let the fans know it's literally just a super fun, awesome space full of super diverse people, and we just have a good time, and it's been going really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm excited about that because I see some of the people who show up at some of these and I'm like, oh, like, there you go. All right. Like we got Sari popping in every now and then. Like, that's fun.
Love it.
That's fun. I don't know if I'd be able to keep it together if I saw Sari, but
we didn't tell anyone she was coming. She came on Wednesday. And
awesome.
and we did a little reality star pregame. And when she walked in, like Owen lost his mind. Lindsay, like they didn't know that she was coming. So that was a real. And then when we walked into the Philly party with Sari, after not announcing her, like, she stopped the music. Yeah.
There are some people who walk into a room and the whole energy changes.
Yeah. Well,
enough about me and my party.
Yeah.
Let's
talk about season 44.
I will say I love the cast. I think they did such a great job. It's super fun. It's like very character driven. You got like Jam ridiculous, Carolyn ridiculous. Danny to me was reminding me kind of, I was getting Tony vibes a little bit from Danny for a while. Just in him just doing so much and kind of having fun, but kind of having like, I don't want to call him a villain, but a sneaky side to him. And it was fun watching that and seeing if he could do that for a super long time. Obviously we saw he got eliminated, but I love the cast, and that's where I'm at. Really enjoying it. Fun time. Carson, young guy, super smart, but also like lying to people. I really enjoy it.
I think Danny, I guess is like a modern day villain, but what I like is that he played super aggressively. He played at 100 miles an hour the whole time, which I feel like is just not something that you see super often. So whether or not you're rooting for him, it's so fun to watch.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing with this whole cast since the beginning. I mean, we had a player get medevaced who was playing really hard, in Matthew, and when we saw Sarah and Helen and Maddie go home, they weren't going home because they were just like bumps on a log. They were playing the game. I mean, Maddie went home because everybody was Brandon had an idol, but she was going for that guy. And I think that's what's been really interesting about this season. And I've really enjoyed the last couple episodes because it's backed off on production stuff. It has just been gameplay. And we're seeing like competitors compete and try to strategize and say, can I get the numbers on my side? Not, can you go find an idol real quick so that we can win this vote even though we only have 2 people out of 9.
It seemed like they put all the funky stuff in pre-merge, and we're like, oh, what do you got? Like, what is the birdcage? All this stuff. And now it's like, all right, let's see how things play out from here. And I think that's pretty cool, like you said, to just see the players play the game. And as far as like the players, even I forgot to mention Franny. I was getting winner vibes from Franny for the few episodes before she was eliminated. And then I'm like, man, this guy Danny used an idol to save Franny, proceeds to vote her out at sometime thereafter. I'm like, man, had he kept her a little longer, the two of them could have kind of been meat shields.
Yeah.
But now we're watching these 2 heavy hitters get out of the game, and now we get to see what these other players can do now.
Well, and so it's fun to have you on here because Ghost Island, I feel like, followed a similar trajectory to this season. Although I think there's been a little bit more chaos in this season in the post-merge than your season had. But during your season, the conversation was like, oh, Wendell and Dom. Nobody's going for Wendell and Dom. Nobody's going for Wendell. Like, we could see it the whole time, and we're getting frustrated. It's like, when is somebody going to wake up and do this? And this season, we have the Tika 3, who are kind of in that same position where they came into the merge. They were on the wrong side of the numbers. Then once they started to get their footing, now it's like, why isn't anybody voting out of them out of the game? Are you seeing this as your final three, or do you think that somehow, some way, Heidi with her idol or Lauren and Jamie are going to be able to pull something?
I think Heidi is like the person to watch. I think she has this idol. She might be able to make some creative play with Lauren and Jamie to work some magic against the Tika 3. But yeah, she's the person to watch. I'm also interested in seeing what happens with fire making, because that's another way you can crack that Tika 3 if it's them and one person at the end. But and then we saw something about like Jam Jam saying like maybe it's time to get Carolyn out or something like that. I think that's a mislead or something. But yeah, the three of them, they've been doing a great job at swinging wherever they need to swing. And also, I think there were bigger targets in the game that they've been able to pick off, and they put themselves in a great position. So yeah, I guess they are kind of like the Wendell and Dom of our season. Though in our case, we knew that if like Danny and Franny, if one of us were going to go, the other person would be kind of like a real standout and go next or shortly thereafter. So yeah, if that's a long way of me saying this trio is legit and I can see them going far, but I want to keep my eye on Heidi.
Yeah, I think to that point, I think the three of them kind of need each other. And I bet Carolyn's name will come up. We saw it for a second, but I don't, as much as Carolyn has made it like so clear that she needed to have Carson there, she needed to have Jam Jam even after they voted separately the week before, they balance each other out, and that's the only way that they can play together. I think getting rid of one of them can easily collapse all three of them.
I also think that as a viewer, we look at Carolyn and we think, or at least I do, I think she can win. But I question how seriously, despite that one great move she did on Danny, I question how seriously the people on the island or even the jurors take Carolyn. So like we watch her and we're like, yeah, she has it, and her quirkiness is actually a great distraction mechanism for her gameplay. And if she can get to the end and explain her actual gameplay and that she hid this idol and blah, 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 I hope they take her as seriously as viewers can.
Yeah. There was a, Phil, I'll go quickly. I think it was Dalton Ross put out a deleted scene of a conversation between her and Danny where she talks about being an emotional player and how that shouldn't be a bad thing. And I think if she can speak to that, assuming she gets to the final three, I think that is a really compelling argument. I think especially with it being a new era, people are going to just have different reasons for voting for people to win. I think because it's so unique to her, I hope people do take that seriously, like you said. But even if she played that idol wrong, the jury was loving that. So I think that's huge for her.
I'm sorry to say one more thing. We've been trained to think that emotional players aren't necessarily great players. And I think Carolyn is helping us unlearn that, or at least in her case. And as far as her playing the idol wrong, do you think that playing it for Carson, she was playing it wrong, or what do we think?
Yeah, wrong's probably the wrong word. Whatever the technical.
I think it was the right move, because I do think that if there was any chance, if she had any inkling that Carson was going home, it's the right move, because you're getting rid of Danny, who's a big threat, who can win in the end, and he can go on an immunity run because you're starting to get rid. Then Carson goes home. That's your best puzzle person. So now Danny does become even though Danny didn't win an individual immunity, he becomes the favorite. But what I worry for Carolyn is because Carson didn't get the votes, as shocked and pumped as the jury was, are they going to sit there and say, oh, that was awesome? Or did she just miss on having this huge epic move?
Right.
I think what the jury does is, I think that it makes them take her seriously, because we saw her tell Jam Jam, I don't have an idol. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any aftermath there. But again, even though it didn't, Carson was fine, it says, oh, look, I can get an idol. You guys never thought I could get an idol. Look at me now. So I think it at least puts her somewhere in a conversation.
And I can get it and like keep it very hidden for a matter of however long that was.
Yeah. And she sniffed Carson out. No one else saw that coming.
I was trying to think. I was asking, I don't know who I was asking, if there was a conversation we didn't see, because she was so in tune with the fact that it was going to be Carson. But then I thought a little more and I'm like, all right, Jam Jam's immune.
Mm-hmm.
They probably look at her as someone that's like, just an emotional character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the natural target would be Carson. So I guess like her intuition, but also like just deducing the fact that like Jam's immune, they look at me silly, so it would be Carson.
Yeah.
But she did a great job with that.
Yeah, she did. And what the big question coming out of last week was why did Jamie and Lauren ultimately not vote for Carson and decide to vote for Heidi instead? That was really the big question that came out. And I was following Lauren on Twitter to try to get some answers. And she was saying that they were playing the middle a little bit, but she couldn't really give too much information because obviously she's mid-season. But I was trying to figure out why they decided to go that way. I get Danny and Heidi were threats, but why not just break up Tika 3 right there?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think there's another missing conversation there, probably.
Yeah. Because I wonder, Carolyn, so first of all, I think the thing that I find most impressive about Carolyn's game so far is that she kept the idol actually hidden for 20 days or whatever it was. Because most players, no matter how rational they are, tell people that they have an idol. But then when you watch a player like Carolyn, every person who's played the game and has the same kind of mentality as Carolyn coming out there, if they find something, they tell. They tell. So for her to not do that, I thought was unbelievably impressive. And we saw that it really was a shock for Carson to find out and that Jam Jam didn't know. But I do almost wonder, because we've seen Carson kind of talk in the past, did Carson let slip to Jamie or to Lauren? There might be an idol in play here.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. But we're here at Final Six. Soka is down to just Heidi. We got the two Ratus in Jamie and Lauren, and we got the Tika 3 who came into the merge with the least numbers, and now they are in what feels like total control. The one wild card is Heidi's idol. Yeah. So when you're coming into this, who are you putting at number one? Who are you saying is the safest this week?
The safest.
Yeah, like who's going to be in the finale, no doubt.
Yeah. Oh, who's going to be in the finale, or who is? Oh, the finale is the
finale next week. So like this person is surviving this week, and they are going to be there next week.
All right, then I'm just going to put Heidi. I was looking at it as who can get the farthest. That was my sixth. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and bump Heidi to the top of the list.
Okay.
I like that. What's your take on Heidi?
She's brilliant. She's very athletic. She was willing to make a move on Danny, which was interesting to see, her number one ally. But I mean, she has an idol. We only have 2 episodes left. So if that idol doesn't get her through this episode, then she wouldn't be as brilliant as I think she is. Mm-hmm. But somehow, some way, she's at the very least going to be within the top 5, if you ask me.
Yeah. Do you think that Heidi has any chance to actually win the game, though? Or do you think that her time has kind of run out to put herself ahead of the other players remaining?
I think that in this era of Survivor, from right now, with 6 players remaining, if she does the right things, I think she could win with the right combination of players at the end.
Mm-hmm. Because she could get an idol play in there successfully, maybe win an immunity, maybe win fire, and that's what's going to be fresh on people's minds in what's already a shorter game.
I'd almost venture to say, yes, first of all, but I'd also almost venture to say that, like, she could make a case against a Lauren, a Jamie, maybe even a Carson, maybe even a Carolyn if the jury doesn't take Carolyn too seriously. So like, if Heidi makes all the right moves, I could see the only person giving her that much static at the end would be like a Jam Jam, who everyone like really loves.
Yeah. Next to the right people, I think Heidi could definitely beat, like, not definitely beat, but I think Heidi has a very good argument against probably half the people here, if not more. Mm-hmm. And this final 6 vote, I feel like this is where something crazy. This is if you're going to try to sell yourself before the jury, this is kind of one of the last times to do it. And she is at the moment the only person who has something external that could help her. So maybe she uses this and breaks up the Tika 3 and gets rid of a Jam Jam or a Carson or something like that.
Is her last time using the idols Final 6 or Final 5? Do you guys know?
Final 5.
Final 5? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So she doesn't have to play it this week. I agree with you. I also have her at number 1 because now that Carolyn's idol's gone and it is the only idol left in the game and she's riding solo, I think she knows it's coming. Like if they're going to go for her, if Ratu's really in with Tika, what I'm hoping and like my fingers are crossed for, I love the Tika 3. I mean, I think they're one of the most fun alliances we've ever had, like seriously in the history of the show. Even if the show is not as good as maybe it was years ago, like you said earlier, Wendell, the cast can still be amazing.
Yeah.
And I love them. But my fingers are kind of crossed here that we're going to see Lauren, Jamie, and Heidi use Heidi's idol to take out one of the Tika 3. I think that would make it a more compelling finale because right now I'm sitting here going, which one of the Tika 3 is going to lose fire to not make it the Tika 3 as the final 3? That's how it kind of feels. So I would love it if Heidi, Jamie, and Lauren can team up, use the idol, get rid of one of them. I don't know about it, but I do feel really good about Heidi because she has the idol and because she has to know that she's going to get votes if they're coming for her.
Yeah. I hope they're at the point where, despite both of them writing Heidi's name down just, the other night, where they can be like, look, guys, we need to work together.
Yeah.
Let's, So, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think. Everybody loves the Tika 3, so nobody wants the Tika 3 to like blow up. But I say it all the time. I love unpredictable Survivor. That's my favorite kind of Survivor. That's why I loved when Gabler won last season because I was like, where the hell did that come from? Like, that's fun. And that's what I'm kind of hoping for because right now it feels like Tika just took over. But that idol really could be the difference maker. And if Heidi plays that correctly to take out one of the big 3, one of the Tika 3, now all of a sudden she might be the favorite going into finale night.
Yeah.
That
And we
move might
see
be-
them. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that move, especially at this point in the game, it might be bigger than Carolyn's idol move, which again was on a person that got 2 votes as opposed to Danny, who already had 3 votes. So yeah.
Yep.
And I think it started with Franny, where she said in her boot episode, she was like, we have to do something about the Tika group. And it keeps coming up. So I can't tell if it's just going to be, we're going to try, but it's too little too late, or we're actually going to capitalize on it now. Yeah.
Do you guys read anything into all the Carson fire stuff?
I feel like I stopped after there was one season where they kept showing, who did they keep showing with fire? I think it was even last season, like Carla or somebody with the fire. But what they did show this season, which I could read into a little bit, is they showed Heidi, her like only moment from the premiere was making fire. And Carson's been sitting like with fire and everything all the time. So I could see maybe something like that.
Yeah.
But I try not to look too much at that.
Yeah, let's not read too far into that.
I mean, do you read into it, Wendell?
I just listen. I listen to a lot of pods and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, like I did see fire in his glasses, and so
they love reflecting it in the glasses.
Yeah. So
how great of an arc would that be, though? If the guy who 3D printed everything
prepared
and
for everything,
practiced in the bathtub with, I know he was joking with that, but like still, if he came out and like didn't win fire because that was like the one thing he wasn't fully prepped for, that would actually be like a pretty ridiculous arc.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Honestly, I buy more into that than him staring at the fire a lot. So maybe it's they're hand in hand, but I don't know. I just remember way back when this started, Devin was just he would look at sticks and they would turn into fire, and Ben was struggling, and then it switches. So I don't know what the percentage is on that, but I honestly feel after you saying that feels like that would line up.
It's either got to be
Carson's
that
so loved. Like this cast clearly, they were jumping for joy when he wins immunity. So I would find it hard to believe that he would get to the end and not do very well.
So like he wouldn't be like I was predicting a Xander sort of run for Carson early on. Like, oh, he could be like a 3rd vote finalist, a 3rd place finalist. But you're right. Like they love this kid.
Yeah.
I think Carson because we talked to Xander, and I like Xander a lot, but talking to other players on his season and talking to Xander, it feels like they weren't connecting with like him on every level, like personally and socially and things like that. Like Xander was like a little bit deeper than people were expecting from somebody like him, and it didn't come across, and people had a hard time connecting. Where I feel like Carson is so like your basic, he's my son, he's my brother, like he's so basic and all of that. And I don't mean that as an insult. It's just it's easier to connect with. So if he got to the end, I don't see really any way Carson gets 0 votes. I would think he'd have to get at least a couple, maybe even the most to win the game. I mean, I think he could absolutely win, but yeah, I don't see him falling into kind of the same problem that Xander had. I think he's easier to relate to.
Understood. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Alexa, who'd you have at 1?
I still have Carolyn at number 1, but I have Heidi at number 2. I think, yes, Carolyn doesn't have her idol anymore. She has, opened herself up to the jury and probably to the rest of the players that she's here to play. I'm sure like the Tika 3, I think definitely already saw that, but I think it's very easy for people to underestimate emotional players, as we were talking about. However, I don't know how anyone can say, oh my gosh, we have to get rid of Carolyn without believing deeper, oh my gosh, we need to get rid of Jam Jam or Carson. I really don't know, especially because Jam Jam's name came up a lot at the beginning of the merge. And again, it came up last week. I know he ended up winning immunity, so I can't tell how serious that threat was. But I do think that he is still viewed as the top of that 3, or Carson, because he wanted immunity, right? Mm-hmm. But because he's likable, and at this point, everyone is looking at everyone is looking at the other 5 and saying, how are they going to beat me, or how am I going to beat them? I still think people will say, I need to get rid of Jam Jam before I need to get rid of Carolyn.
I agree with that. My biggest question coming into this episode is the godforsaken question of, are they going to hide the idol that was just played? Are we going to get another one at Final 6 that's going to come back into play? Because I'd say right now, Jam Jam and Carson are the favorites in challenges. I think, especially Carson, because a lot of stuff has puzzles, and that'll just put Carson at the front. Yeah. And if they're not looking at Carolyn, but Carson does that and Jam Jam goes and finds an idol, the only option is Carolyn. Even if they don't know like all of that, that might turn that. So I just wonder if they're going to do that. And I do think Jam Jam's the biggest threat to everybody except for Jam Jam and Carson. I could see Jam Jam being able to convince some people maybe we should get rid of Carolyn. I mean, I think it's the red herring that we saw in the preview, but it seems like that could be a route he goes, because now she has an idol play and nobody else who's left in the game does, which should be taken seriously, even if it wasn't ultimately as powerful as Danny's play. So
that's wild. No one else has had an idol play.
Yeah.
Oh, Danny's, but he's not there.
But he's out.
Yeah.
He's sitting at home. He's making Robert De Niro faces at Ponderosa. And everybody's like, what the hell are you doing, man? Leave me alone. But, Wendell, who do you put it to?
I have Carolyn at 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I think there are bigger targets ahead of her. I think you obviously have Jam and Carson, but then like the 3 of them have, I mean, Heidi has the idol, but the 3 of them have Lauren and Jamie that they would probably rather get rid of than any of themselves. So yeah, I'd have Carolyn 2nd.
Yeah. And I mean, after I made my whole argument there, I have Carolyn at 2 as well. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of what should Jamie and Lauren do, but what are Jamie and Lauren going to do? Or based on what we've watched this whole season, how does this work out where Jamie, Lauren, and Heidi take down the Tika 3 and go on to win the game? Like that's where I'm struggling, because the gap in edit and the gap in like the emotional moments and all of that, it's not even close. It's really not even close. I mean, the Tika 3 are up here and the other 3 are way further down. And so that's where I'm having a hard time. So that's why I go with Carolyn at 2. And I say, this is probably a Jamie or Lauren boot episode, but there is such an easy path to getting rid of one of the Tika 3 here if they see it.
Yeah.
That's fun. All right. Well, now that we're caught up and Wendell and I have the exact same thing, Wendell, what do you have at 3?
I had my list in a different order.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear that order after this.
It was essentially who I thought would win, who I think is playing the best game, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So I guess number 3 for me would be, Yeah, because I see like a Jam or a Carson winning immunity, I'll have to go. I'll go with a Jamie. I'll put Jamie. No, this is for number 3 as far as
Like
third.
they're gonna make it.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
go
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Third
yeah.
highest
No,
chance.
so it's so tricky. So I'll put.
It's tough.
I got Carson winning immunity again, so I'm gonna give Carson number 3. That's
like
what
it.
I'm gonna do.
I like it. And I like how hard you're like struggling with this, because I think this bottom
It's
4
tough.
is a lot closer than people are realizing. Like there's a like I said, there's a very easy path to getting rid of the Tika 3, even though the Tika 3 have taken over the numbers.
Yeah, I mean yeah. I mean it's 3 and 3 if the the Soka and Ratu got their stuff together and they have the idol. So it's like y'all should be able to do something right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what honestly might have been the best move of this season, and like it seemed so questionable at the time because it made no sense, but getting rid of Kane at final 9 made it so that you had Franny and Danny both there to look at as huge threats. And if you get rid of Franny or Danny at 9, which we all were sitting there like, how I think it was Franny had 1 immunity, so everybody's like, how is Danny not going home here? But I think if you vote out Danny there, now you're like, okay, well, like, we can wait to get rid of Franny. Maybe we should get rid of Tika. Maybe we should get rid of Tika. But by getting rid of Kane, you made it so that there were still 2 really big threats left in the game. And to get rid of them, that was going to get you to final 6. Yeah. And at the time, I don't know if that's what they were thinking about, but if Kane lasts 1 more episode and Danny goes there, all of a sudden it's like, well, we can wait. Let's get rid of Tika this week because we have time to get rid of Tika this week.
Yeah. I like that move, and I like that strategy. Even if that wasn't necessarily what they were thinking. Yeah, you get rid of someone that's like, I guess, a notch down from those 2 power players just so that you preserve those power players to get rid of them, next.
Yeah. And it makes it easy because if you're Lauren and Jamie, you say, I don't want to sit next to Danny necessarily at the end, and I don't want him to win immunities to beat us to get to the end. So let's vote him off. He's a big threat. And now you look up and you're like, oh, we have the same amount of numbers, and they don't know about Heidi's idol.
Right.
So.
Okay, I've written in all my numbers. They're all written down. Okay.
Good. We're gonna have to hear your previous final 6 at the end of this. But I also had Carson at number 3. I think, again, he very well could win individual immunity. His name came up for the first time, and I feel like there could be some momentum with that. His name very well probably will come up again just because of how few people are left. But I think he has been very much solidified. Even though Carolyn didn't quote unquote save him, that was a huge move to preserve an ally. And I do think that the 2 of them are going to be very close. Not to jump too far ahead, I think Jam Jam is in the most trouble out of the 3 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually have Jam Jam at 3, and I said I was going to be obnoxious last week when we talked with Carla. I said, if they don't get rid of Jam Jam this week, I'm going to put him at number 1, and I'm just going to be annoying because there's no way he's going to lose now. They missed their chance. But the fact that he was on radars and then won immunity, I think is like, that's why I didn't put him at 1, right? I want to put him at 1 because I feel like he's going to win the game. I feel like he's playing the best game. I feel like he's doing a great job. But I keep him at 3 because he won the immunity and his name came up. So that maybe saved him, maybe it didn't, it doesn't matter. But my big thing with it is just when we're watching this season play out, and last season we ran into the same thing where it felt like it was Jesse's story the whole time and it wasn't Jesse's story. So maybe I'm being duped, but I feel like we are watching the story of Jam Jam and Carolyn. And I feel like Carson is their third stooge. Like these are the 2 main guys. And then there's Carson, who's just it's a little bit less of his story. And so that's why I have to put Jam Jam at 3, because I just don't see a finale that doesn't have Jam Jam in it with how this has gone this season. So
I mean, how could you not give him such an edit? The person that he is, no matter if he lasted 3 episodes or 8 episodes, like, and similarly with Carolyn, it's like, you gotta, like, they're gonna get their screen time. So I hear what you're saying. Yeah, definitely don't put him number 1 because, again, he's on the radar and won immunity. That bumps him up. Like, hey, if we get a shot, we need to take the shot at Jam Jam. But yeah, based on his edit, it's like he's got to be somewhere near the end.
He's gotta. He had like it would be
Yeah.
crazy if Jam after everything we've watched this season. I pull up the confessional count because I love looking at it. But he has 58, Carolyn has 52, then Carson has 42, and then everybody else is in the 20s.
Wow.
Right. So there's a huge gap.
Yeah.
And like to have a finale that's not going to have him in it, especially when he hasn't been playing like an underdog game. It'd be different if, you know, he was Terry Dietz or Kelly Wentworth and you're looking at it going, okay, they haven't had numbers the entire time. We're going to get their story because they're constantly with their back against the wall. Troy Zan in one world. And then they go home before the finale. That's different. But Jam all of a sudden is in like a power position. I don't know. We're going to be watching him on TV on the 24th. We're just going to be. So that's why I put him at 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he won immunity, I also paid attention to how they responded to him. Like Carson, they were all just like gushing that he won. And I think that shows you if this man sits at the end, like people love him, and you'd like to give $1 million to people that you like. So he will be a big threat.
Yep, absolutely. So I want to keep putting Wendell on the spot, Alexa, since he had to redo his whole thing. So Wendell, who do you have at 4?
I have Jam at 4.
You have Jam at 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
same.
essentially, it was Heidi number 1 because of her idol, and then the Tika 3 preceding that. I'm sorry, after her. So yeah, Jam is my 4th because he could very well win immunity. They still have their 3. But again, if the other 3 get their stuff together with the idol, this whole list can be flipped.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of a sudden we're going into a finale where we're going, okay, so who's going to win out of Heidi, Lauren, and Jamie? Like who's pulling it out? Which is not where I thought we'd be, but I mean, it's very possible. We were all very hard, I think, on the Ratus last week because it didn't make sense in what we watched on TV. But when you actually talk about the options they still have, even though I don't think they know about Heidi's idol, it's not the worst move. You didn't just give full power. You gave a lot of power, but there's still plenty of options for you to take that power back. So,
you're saying as opposed to voting out, as opposed to putting them all on Carson?
Yeah, as opposed to putting them all on Carson, which obviously Carolyn would have saved Carson, so it wouldn't have made a difference. But if they would have put him all on Carson to get him out of the game, you'd have power. Tika would only have 2 left, but then you got to worry about Danny and Heidi still and everything like that. So
that's the thing I would say. Sometimes when there's someone that like a Danny, although he hasn't won a lot of immunities or any, he was a lot of times he was like top 2, you know, and like very mad at himself when he'd lose. And I could see him winning, you know, winning immunities. So sometimes like you're on the island, you're like, man, I just don't want him to start getting any momentum. So we're going to get him out. So this playing field is more even.
And I do think he was probably pretty good with fire. I know we saw the Heidi thing in the premiere, but I'm sure Danny was pretty good with tending fire, which we don't really see throughout the season. But if he is, then you say to yourself, okay, what if he did find another idol and then he wins immunity and then he makes fire? So like, I get it. It's just when what we're watching is like, it's so obvious you need to take out the Tika 3, but that's what we're watching, not maybe what's happening on the island.
And that's the thing. Like,
yeah.
Like, and I even try to tell myself with storylines, we're seeing a lot of Jam, we're seeing a lot of Carolyn, we're seeing a lot of Carson. We're not seeing much of Lauren. No. And I think she's not, I think she's kind of taking it not so well. And also she's getting a lot of backlash. But I truly believe that these editors can edit a lot of people that are on this island to have fantastic edits.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just had James on from 43 a couple of weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago now. And it's funny because he was edited as like the biggest villain. He got 21 confessionals, like wasn't eating up very much screen time at all. And it's funny because then you talk to him and he's just a humongous Survivor fan who loves the show, knows the details, is strategy, and doesn't stop talking. And I mean that in a great way. Like he's so much fun to talk to. And it's funny, like he only got 21 confessionals. So it really is like who's important to the editor's storyline. And that's where I'm like, they could make Lauren and Jamie. And they could, I mean, they've, like I've said, they've dragged Jamie through the mud this season.
Yeah.
So,
Weird note about James. I've known him for over 15 years, 10, 15 years.
Really?
Yeah. And when I got on the show, he would talk to me about, like, when I was airing, he would come to my stuff and I'd see him in the city and he'd talk to me about Survivor. And then he talked to me about Big Brother, and I'm like, wow, this guy knows more history than I do. So I'm like, you better apply. And then,
yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, then here he is. Yeah,
that's awesome.
He's a Survivor encyclopedia. He knows his stuff.
Yeah, he's.
I wasn't expecting that when we started talking to him, and he just started rattling. Me and him talked for like an hour after the podcast, and it was just all Survivor. It was just Survivor,
awesome.
and I was like, "This is great."
He won't stop. Yeah. Good guy.
So I'm gonna give the kiss of death, Alexa. I'll jump before you here. I'm gonna give the kiss of death. I have put Jamie at the last spot every single week for the last 4 weeks, and this week I'm gonna put her at 4. I'm gonna put her at 4, and I'm gonna say that out of the Raw twos, they're gonna see Lauren as a bigger threat, or this group of 3 is actually gonna pull it off with the idol and get rid of Carson. So I'm going to put Jamie at 4, which is absolutely the kiss of death for her, which means she is definitely going home this week because I keep putting her at last and I keep saying I'm not going to change it because like I'm just like I don't see why she's going to stay. So this week I'm going to move her up, and I don't know. I just think like why get rid of Jamie here? Lauren's won an immunity. Lauren, I don't know what her relationships are like with the jury, but the one thing we do know about Jamie is that she's well liked for her personality, because Danny was talking about that in his exit press a lot. He was really giving Jamie a lot of compliments, but nobody really thinks that she's playing the game with any type of like intelligence based on what we've seen from this edit. I mean, they dragged her for what she said about the idol and all of that, even though it was all true, which is always frustrating when you're watching that back. But that's why I'm going to put her here and say, if they are going to vote out Raw 2, it's going to be Lauren. It's not going to be Jamie.
Yeah, then Jamie's going home because of what you just said, Phil.
Yeah, so there you go. Now it's easy for you to both put her.
And coincidentally, she's my number 6.
There you go. I love it.
So I have JMJ at 4 for probably the same reasons as you, Wendell. Also, I keep turning off my camera. There's activity going on in front of me, which is distracting. But I think his name has come up more than pretty much anybody here, because the Dannys are gone, the Frannies are gone, and yes, I cannot imagine a finale without him, but trying to do these predictions without like looking into something, he should go home this week. I don't think he will. I do think it's either Lauren or Jamie based on my 5 and 6.
So, Wendell, you're saying Lauren 6 or Lauren 5, Jamie 6. That's what you're going with?
Yeah.
So why do you think they would keep Lauren over Jamie?
That's a good question, because if I'm thinking about how they're looking at the two of them, I would think that maybe Lauren. I would think that they might think Lauren is a bigger threat. So I think I just had to throw numbers down. I can't even make an argument for saying that based on like the edit or how I think people would think that they would think that Jamie is a bigger threat than Lauren. No, I can't do it. Yeah, I can't.
So it's got to be immunity then, huh?
So am I saying Lauren? Yeah, Lauren can win immunity. She has, or was it a reward or immunity?
No, she won immunity. She beat Danny. Challenge.
Yeah,
when Danny farted, just in case you forgot. Yeah,
it almost slipped my mind.
Yeah, don't forget.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I guess Lauren. I can see Lauren winning immunity over Jamie. Yeah, so that would be my argument if I had to make one.
Yeah, we have Lauren's won an immunity, so we have precedent for that. I also think out of the two of them, Lauren's edit has been quiet, and she's clearly been frustrated, and I couldn't blame her. I mean, I would be pretty pissed if that was what I saw, but especially because recently what we've gotten from her is, she's a single mother. She's like has this story with her dad that came through so quickly, but that was a very like inspirational, I can do what I set my mind to. That is a finale storyline, not to get really meta, but there is like, I want Lauren to succeed because of what I've heard from her. What I want Jamie to succeed because I like her and she seems very kind. I don't know how she can succeed just based on what we've seen. So I have Lauren at 5, Jamie at 6.
They've given Jamie this silly edit, but I guess the other thing that I would say, my other argument, if I had to make another one, was the Jamie idol thing, and how they thought she had an idol for however long, and how they thought she lied that it went home with Kane, or was it Kane or Matt?
Yeah, it was Kane. So they could think that she still has it.
They could think that she still has it. So that could be my second reason as to why she is number 6 for me.
That's a good point. I didn't even really think about that when doing this because they didn't talk about it last week of like what we still have to worry about Jamie's idol, because then that makes it even more so, right? If you're Tika, you don't know Heidi has an idol, but you think Jamie has one. And then Heidi does have one. So you like realistically, they could be going up against 2 idols right now. We know they're not, but like that's where this could
really
be.
Good point.
And then they'd really be in trouble. So yeah, that's a good point. And I could see them going for Jamie, but also if you don't think Jamie can beat you, if you don't think Jamie's going to win, why vote her out now, especially when you're always going to have fire making, right? You're not going to have to worry about Jamie beating you and playing your idol at 5 and then doing whatever and sneaking into the final 3. You're going to have fire making, which is going to give you a chance to get rid of Jamie so that your final 3 can still stay intact. So that's where I would go with that. And that's why I have Carson at 5, because I do think that if these 3 women team up and they play the idol and it goes well, I think Carson will actually be who they target. And at 6, I'm going to put Lauren, just because I just think that she is the bigger threat out of her and Jamie. And if they get their way, if it continues to go how they want it, Jamie, don't get rid of Jamie here. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, Lauren we think Lauren's a bigger threat. I really cannot tell what the players think.
Right, because again, we're being told that Jamie is being silly, and or has silly reads, and boots on the ground, they're thinking that Jamie's lying to them that she actually does have an idol. So again, there's got to be some disconnect. So we don't know what they're thinking about a Lauren as opposed to a Jamie. Phil, what you're saying is, I guess, so if the 3 of them, the Soka and Ratu, get their stuff together with the idol and aim for someone in Tika, the first target would be Carson, then a Jam, then a Carolyn.
That's what I think. I think that if they went this route, like, so Jam just won Last Gasp. There is no other immunity challenge like Last Gasp. That is a one-off. That's it. And out of all the challenges, that's the only one that Jam's been close to winning. Right? Like, he hasn't been in any of the other challenges. He hasn't been threatening. Whereas Carson, with the puzzles, is a huge threat. He can win everything. They saw him in the pre-merge. They saw him in the post. They actually played on his tribe during a challenge with a puzzle, right? Because he went over to Ratu for a brief period of time. So I think you'd go for him first and then say Jam's not going to, we just got to not let Jam win the final 5 challenge. That's all it comes down to. So that's why I think they'd go Carson 1, Jam 2. And I think Carolyn would have to be like look, we know that somebody found an idol and Jam's wearing the necklace. So that's why we'd get rid of Carolyn. But I think Carson, because like, if I'm talking about who's the bigger threat at final 3, I think it's Jam. But if I'm talking about who's the bigger threat to thwart my game plans, I think it's Carson, because he can win immunities and that can throw everything off.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have another question. If you're looking like, is there a world, because for example, we got the red herring where I think we heard Jam saying, we might have to go for Carolyn now, right? I don't know if they used another one before because Carolyn said to Danny that we might need to go for Carson. They could have used that as a red herring. But going forward, is there a world where we see these Tika 3 saying, you know what? You guys are my biggest threats to win the game. So I am going to jump. We're so late in the game now that, like, you know what? I'm going to make a move. Do you guys see something like that happening?
This is probably the time for them to break up, because it is a little too late for all 3 of them to go home. I don't think there's a final 3 that's Heidi, Lauren, Jamie. So I think we could see that from Jam. I mean, he's the one who says that about Carolyn, but I think Jam and Carson could maybe go together, or could maybe go against each other, because even though we don't really see it, I do feel like Carolyn is sort of the glue between Jam and Carson.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, I'm going to ask a question to answer the question, right? when you were with Dom, did you think you could beat Dom at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So you thought you could beat Dom, and Dom thought he could beat you, even though
Yeah.
you're all working together. You thought you could beat each other. So I think that's the thing with the Tika 3 right now is I think they all think they can beat each other.
Then that's the perfect arrangement.
And I don't think that they are going to find a need to get, because Jam Jam's talking about, we got to get rid of Carolyn. But does he really think that Carolyn's going to beat him at the end? Or does he think that he'll be able to make a more compelling argument? I think he thinks he can make the more compelling argument. So why split yourselves up if you think you can beat everybody? And I think for Carolyn, who wants to be taken seriously and is playing a very good game, I do think that her relationships are more important to her than the game. So if there was one of them that would split it up, it would be her. But I think she has passed that point. I think it would have happened last week. I think when we saw her say, I just needed a minute, I need to be pissed, and now I'm happy. I think that's all she needed. And that's why she ended up going and going back to that.
Yep.
I forget who he talks to about this, but I feel like if the Tika 3 are all the final 3, it's very hard for them to distinguish their games from one another because they can all just sort of fight like, no, I was in charge. I made this decision. So maybe if they actually want each other gone, or if Jam Jam actually wants Carolyn gone, it could be a lot of our moves are the exact same. She balanced me out, and it's almost better to just not even have her there to fight him versus if she was on the jury, maybe she would gas him up rather than go against him.
Although if Jam Jam actually votes Carolyn out of the game, I could see Carolyn going over to the jury and being pissed. Like I could see her being really mad, and then that's not good for Jam Jam.
On that same, I could see that too, because like she's playing with emotion, and she's connected to these people, like she loves these people. So for them to stab her in the back, that might really hurt her. I do have a question about what Danny might be doing amongst the jury. Like Danny does have a strong voice, and he got blindsided. He got idled out by Carolyn. Does he respect that play? I mean, I know he went out like De Niro, he did his thing going out, but like, does he respect that play? Does he still respect Carolyn? Could he vote for Carolyn? Or is it like, man, yeah, she made one move on me, whatever. She had to do that. I wonder how he would.
Did you see any of his Bloom interview?
No.
Okay, so based on his Bloom interview, I saw one little snippet. I don't think there's any way he votes for Carolyn because they were talking about the Brandon, Carolyn, Danny like thing. And Danny was really defending Brandon, being like, Brandon's a great guy. He wouldn't say anything mean, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, but I'm a dick. And I probably was coming across that way. And I probably was this and I was that. So I think that Danny kind of overlooked Carolyn the whole game. I think that was just going to be his personality. And I think that because Carolyn her idol wasn't the sole reason he went home, because he still got the majority of votes and it was only Heidi who didn't vote against him. I think he's probably going to keep his pecking order from those other 5, however it is. I think he'd vote for Heidi every time if she sits at final 3. And then I think it's probably like Jam, Carson. We saw him talking a lot about how much he loves Lauren. I don't know if that could mean something, but I think Carolyn's probably at the bottom of his list.
Yeah, because I guess Lauren was sort of his like nemesis. He kept wanting her out. So maybe he could have, if she gets to the end, then it's, I tried to get you and I never could. He could have that respect there. And Heidi was always his number 1. And I think he still went home believing that Heidi didn't vote for him. I don't know how true that is, but I love that. If so, that's awesome.
Yeah. He's going to find out real quick, though, when Franny's like, dude, it was Heidi. Like, because he's going to get to Ponderosa. She'd be like, yeah, Heidi voted for you. Because that was kind of what her excuse was, but that isn't going to happen. Wendell, who are you seeing then winning the game? Because I know you did your whole ranking differently at the start. So, like, who are you seeing as your final 3, and who do you think is going to win it?
Okay, so this was the list I had.
Okay.
And I had the Tika 3 at the top. I had Jam, Carolyn, Carson.
Okay.
And I circled Heidi because I feel like there is a path for her. I feel like even with Tika at the end, there could be some way that Heidi makes magic. And like we just said, with Danny sitting on the jury, he might be a good surrogate for her or something like that. So I got Jam, Carolyn, Carson. Then I have Heidi, Lauren, Jamie.
Got it. So no way Jamie's winning. Pretty much, she'd have to do something crazy down the line here.
I love you, Jamie.
I hate when Wendell's a nice guy. Come on.
I don't see it. I don't see it.
No. And what'll be interesting with Heidi is because let's assume she's got the idol, she's good to Final 5. And then let's say they say, we're not as worried about you. We'll let you get the Final 4. If she gets to 4 and Tika throws her in the fire making, if she goes against Jam Jam and beats Jam Jam, I think Heidi can win. Mm-hmm. If she goes against anybody else and Jam Jam is sitting in Final Tribal, I don't think she can beat Jam Jam. I think she could make an argument against Carson, an argument against Carolyn. I don't think she can beat Jam Jam.
Yeah. I'd love to like look at the jury and like truly think about that. I think you're right. I think you're right, but I think that she could get some votes. I think Jam would obviously get a lot of votes, and we'd have to see who the third person is. Yeah. Or if that third person splits votes with Jam.
That's a good point.
If it's a Carson or something, you never know.
You never know. That we haven't seen that really in Survivor history, right? Like it always feels like, oh, what if this person takes some votes? But it always seems like the jury has enough groupthink by that point that they say, no, like we're all in on this person from that 2-person alliance. But that is always the more fascinating. Like if you get Jam Jam and Carolyn and they have played very similar games and Franny's really loving Carolyn because like she could see herself being like her as she gets older and knows who she is. And like you start to get that. And then you have the guys like Danny who are like Jam Jam's just like this dude who does what. All of a sudden you get to that 3-3 and here's the other person who swoops in and wins it with or whatever, however many votes there are. It's 2-2. And then here comes Heidi with 4 votes and wins it 4-2-2 or something like that.
Yeah, because Heidi could be she's the only Soka left, and there's a handful of them on the jury.
Yeah.
Like Matt, like I don't know who Matt's gonna vote for. Or like
he's gonna vote for Franny anyway.
Yeah. That would be so interesting. And after this season with like all these awesome characters and people getting injured, and I think this is an awesome season for it to end with a funky vote at the end, I wouldn't be mad at it.
Well, and I think about it, right? Like when Survivor really plays up a season, it's normally because something funky but fun happens at the end. They loved Ghost Island. I mean, coming into Ghost Island, it was going to be the greatest season of all time, right? And I mean, we all know how that worked out. I won't harp on it, but it was maybe the best finale in the history of the show because what we saw at that final tribal council, we had never seen before. And it's absolutely epic. And that's going to excite Jeff. That's going to excite the producers. That's going to excite the people who have to hype up a season.
Yeah. Could
we see something like that coming again with this season? Could we get to a final 3 where Jam Jam and Carson tie, where Carolyn and Jam Jam tie, where Carolyn and Carson tie, and we have somebody casting the vote? Like I could see that with how these players are playing.
What if it's the Tika 3 and a Tika has to break the tie?
Oh my God. You can write that. That's so good.
Yeah, Phil, good. Yeah. That'd be
fun. That would be really, really, really fun. And I mean, we only saw it once in Ghost Island, but I do think that especially with the smaller juries and people starting to respect, they're not as bitter anymore, or like you only get a few people who are bitter. So it makes it so that the votes are a little bit more evenly dispersed. I think we could see it. I mean, I really do. We haven't seen like an even final tribal in a while because last season Gabler won by a landslide. Marianne won in a landslide. Erica's was a little closer, but she still was going to dominate. Why not with Carolyn, Carson, and Jam Jam with how even they've played?
Yeah.
They've all played the same game.
Yep.
I like it. I like it.
Could be exciting.
Wendell, you have anything else before we wrap this thing up?
Well, I appreciate podcasting with you guys. This was awesome. I think last time we podcast was in 2020 during all the unrest and stuff. So it was good to jump on with you guys. Big fan of the pod. Keep doing what you do. And anytime you guys call me, I'm down to join.
And I just have one more question for you then. Since Alexa, can you tip your hat down a little bit?
I forgot it. I actually forgot until I put this on. I was like, oh, we're playing the Sixers tomorrow night.
The only thing that Alexa and I agree on sports-wise is that we're Celtics fans. So you agree, like Sixers are done,
there he
right?
goes. He's out of here.
I didn't hear what you were saying.
I said you agree the Sixers are totally yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's a nice jersey, actually.
That is a nice jersey.
They sent it to me.
Oh
What's it
my
say?
God, that's
I
oh my
love
God,
that.
that's awesome.
Yeah, they sent it to me like last 2 years ago, something
Oh,
like
the
that.
Sixers did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, well,
that's
Phil,
awesome.
we lost that one.
Well, it doesn't matter. So you'll be able to wear that jersey next season. It'll be nice.
Oh, man.
Tomorrow's
big,
Mother's Day.
big
but-
night tomorrow night.
So so what time's the game? It's a daytime game, right?
We're
Yeah,
the
they put it
day
at 3.
game.
I'm on a plane. I'm like, why is it not 8 p.m. Sunday night? Like, what is going on?
I think it's because the Lakers won.
Okay.
When the Lakers won,
yeah,
that impacted us.
yeah,
Yeah,
because then they
now
would have had
all
another one.
There's no
So-
other series. Yeah.
The only thing I'll say is we had to win. When was it last night? 2 nights?
2 nights
We,
ago.
two
yeah,
nights
we
ago.
had to win 2 nights ago. We had
Yeah.
to do it in Philly. I don't want them going to Boston. Yeah. So as I'm rooting for my boys, but if I'm a realist, I'd say you guys got a good setup right now.
Depends on how Jason Tatum does. We sort
Oh
of
my
are
God.
living and dying by him right now.
And I
Phil, I saw your
cannot
tweet
stand
about
him. Yeah,
that.
I can't stand him. I'm so over it. You can have him, Wendell.
He came alive the fourth quarter.
He
Did
sure
what he had to
did.
do in Philly.
I hate. You know what it makes me mad though. It's like, and I know this isn't a basketball podcast, but I can't help myself with Jason
Well,
Tatum.
yeah,
it's like,
our viewers always plummet when we start talking
because
about
he
sports.
did that, everybody's like, no, but look, he's clutch, whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
but when you're the superstar of your team, you're supposed to play great all the time, or like 90% of the time. And he's been terrible in this whole Sixers series. He's been horrible.
Yeah.
So it's like, congrats. You had one good quarter. It was very important timing, like, well done. But it makes me mad because, like, is he going to go out in game 7 and do the same thing? If he does, I hope the Sixers win so I can stop watching him play.
Oh,
All right.
Phil.
All right. Appreciate it.
But anyway,
the only
works.
thing I'll say is
Go ahead.
when it comes to Survivor news, that's, me, Bryce, and Jack Atkins. When we talk about other things, that's when people, I think, love us the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, people don't love y'all when you talk about the Celtics?
We don't have like a sports fans crossover at all. And so when we start talking like during football season, like we start talking Lions and stuff, we'll get like a couple comments on the side that are just like, are you kidding me? Like, we don't want to hear this, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, most of my job is working in sports. So I'm like, oh, it's kind of.
But I think maybe this is the case for the three of you, Wendell and Phil. Maybe this is probably the case for us too. There's more to our lives than this 1 hour a week.
Mhm.
So I think talking about the other interests we have, I don't know, hopefully kind of humanizes us and does create more connections. People are either going to like me because I like Boston teams or they're going to hate me because of it. And that will at least stir up conversation.
And when you say Boston, it comes out like that. You
I
don't
know.
say,
Well,
oh,
I'm in Massachusetts right now, so it's a little elevated.
elevated.
My last thought will be, there's a 20% chance that I'll see y'all in New York. But if I do or if I don't, I'm gonna make sure you guys are well taken care of at all the events.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
Thank you.
And
We will
that's
keep
why
our
we keep
Sixers,
bringing you back.
Crap talking to the bottom.
Who's your favorite winner of all time, Alexa? Say it real quick.
Phil, get out of here. You were
Wendell.
just making fun of his season like 5 times.
Yeah, but he's our favorite
You
winner. He just said
can't
he's
do
going to
that
take
in
care of
front
us.
of
I
him.
love Ghost Island. That's my favorite season.
Listen here, Phil. I was not liking you. I was like, I've had my highs and lows. I've always been a fan of the specialists, right?
Mhm.
But I've had my highs and lows with Phil. I'm like, during my season, I was like, this guy, I'm gonna see him. But you're also very I just like you. So and I also, because I podcast about the show, I'm like, sometimes I just have takes to have takes, even
Yeah.
and then I see the people in real life and they're like, no, this is how it happened, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, I just said it just because I had to have a take. So
We're a lot better in person than we are.
Yeah.
Here.
And it's a tough one, right? Because when I know on Ghost Island, just for example, when Alexa's on the Wendell train and I'm like, well, I got to be on the Dom train then. Because if we both just sit here and talk Wendell, that's not. And I honestly did think Dom was going to win that season. But I mean, last season I jumped all in on the Gabler Galleon and I was like, let's go. He's going to win. I was saying it for whatever. And I mean, was that a take? Yeah, because I thought Jesse was still going to win, but I had to be like, well, if it's not Jesse, it's Gabler. Never did I actually think Gabler would be up there. I mean, on the whatever with Wendell and Adam Klein and all those fun people. You know, it's crazy.
It's also tough because Phil and I've been doing this for so long that our brains are the same. If we don't like a season, it has no impact on how we feel about players. We have had plenty to say about the season early on, but I hope if anyone's listening, it's there's not a person we don't like. We think the cast is elevating this season. Use that word twice now.
Well, thank you guys.
Yes.
Wendell,
Can't
it was
wait.
so great to
Hopefully we
have
do
you on.
see you. If not, congratulations on everything that's going on anyway. I mean, like, what are you going to do, right? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right,
And,
everyone. We will see you Wednesday, right after the episode. Only two more episodes to go this season, which is pretty crazy. So tune in right after 9:00 Eastern. We'll be live. Become a patron, patreon.com/5specialist. And Wendell, as always, it was fantastic to have you on.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.